Hello, welcome back to our studies in the book of James. Today we're in chapter 5, episode 2, which is entitled Patience. In our last episode, James encouraged us to be patient in the face of injustices. He said that all will be corrected at Christ's second coming. God will bring justice full circle. He will also compensate us fully for all the losses we incurred. He will reward us richly for our patient endurance. We shall reign with Christ when he comes back the second time. In this episode, he continues to talk about patience. Let's read James 5:9 through 11. 9. Do not grumble against one another, brethren, lest you be condemned. Behold, the judge is standing at the door. My brethren, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord as an example of suffering and patience. Indeed, we count them blessed who endure. You have heard of the perseverance of Job and seen the end intended by the Lord, that the Lord is very compassionate and merciful. In verse 9, James asked us to be patient with each other. If we are not patient with our fellow believer, we can give into grumbling. That will cause us to be condemned. We shall move ourselves from receiving favor from God to receiving discipline from God. God dislikes grumbling. He does not like complaining people. We have read Moses' account of God's dealing with the children of Israel in the wilderness, how God responded to their grumbling and complaining. We do not want to follow the example. What can cause us to grumble against a fellow believer? One thing I can think of is when we see immaturity in another believer. This can show up in different ways. Perhaps he or she is irresponsible or not trustworthy, not a team player, stubborn, argumentative, etc. There can be 1,000 reasons for our grumbling against another believer. Whatever the reason, God still does not like us to grumble. I think part of the reason is that we forget how God is so very patient with us. He has to put up with many of our idiosyncrasies. But through it all, He still loves us. He expects us to treat others with the same grace He treats us with. When we get impatient with another believer, we forget how we have behaved with God in the past. We become proud and judgmental of others. God has not given us permission to judge a fellow believer. We have talked about this in James chapter 4, episode 3. You can go back and watch it. In verses 10 and 11, James reminds us of the prophets of the Old Testament. They had to put up with so much bad behavior and bad attitude of God's people to whom God sent these prophets. They were abused, defamed, and persecuted. Some even lost their lives. This happened throughout the history of the nation of Israel. Yet these prophets put up with all the ill treatment they received. They went back time and again to exhort God's people to return to God's ways. In doing so, many of them suffered even more abuse and more persecution. They endured it all for God's sake and for His people's sake. We count these prophets blessed. We know that they have a great and everlasting reward from God. Then James brings Job's example to us. Job was one man who has suffered the greatest misfortune any human could experience other than Jesus. If we read the book of Job, we shall see how Satan went about destroying everything Job had. He lost all his wealth, status, and possessions. He lost all his children, and he even lost his health. In one day, Job lost everything. What was his fault? None. He did nothing to deserve this. Satan got permission from God to pour out all his contempt on Job just because God praised Job for being an uncompromisingly righteous person. There was none like him on the earth. Job's loss was so great that he wanted God to take his life. So great was his pain and suffering that when his friends came to comfort him, they could not say anything for 7 days. They were lost for words. But at the end, God turned everything around. God healed Job and restored his health. God gave Job new children who were far better than the children he lost. God gave back double all the wealth that he lost. He bestowed greater honor on Job, even more than what he had before. James says that what God did for Job proves that God was very compassionate and merciful. James is asking us to look at Job as an example of how we must endure suffering and injustice, knowing that God is going to give back to us far more than we could ever lose. We must accept that this world is not our home. The world in its current state is in rebellion with God. Just as the world hates God, it hates us. Whatever they did to Jesus, they will likely do the same to us. We shall face suffering and persecution. We shall be unjustly treated. Throughout history, we can see how God's people have suffered. There will be times when there is peace and there is prosperity. We love those times. But there will also be times of conflict and struggles. We must be willing to put up with them, knowing that God will reward us and more than compensate for our losses. We shall inherit eternal glory. 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 12 to 16 say this. Beloved, do not think it strange concerning the fiery trial which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened to you. But rejoice to the extent that you partake of Christ's sufferings, that when his glory is revealed, you may also be glad with exceeding joy. If you are reproached for the name of Christ, blessed are you, for the Spirit of glory and of God rests upon you. On their part he is blasphemed, but on your part he is glorified. But let none of you suffer as a murderer, a thief, an evildoer, or as a busybody in other people's business. Yet if anyone suffers as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God in this matter. Romans 8:16 through 18. The Spirit himself bears witness with our spirit that we are children of God, and if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with Christ. If indeed we suffer with him, then we shall be glorified together. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. Revelation 21:4 and 5. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. Then he who sat on the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said to me, Write, for those words are true and faithful. While still talking about not getting under God's judgment, James brings another issue for us to keep in mind. James 5:12. But above all, my brethren, do not swear either by heaven or by earth or with any other oath, but let your yes be yes and your no, no, lest you fall into judgment. It was a common practice in those days, and even now, when interrogated, a person might be required to tell the truth under oath. When faced with a situation like this, we admonish to avoid taking the oath, but to be upfront in telling what is true. Let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. Don't get into swearing, as an ounce of untrue in our mostly true statement would still make us guilty, thereby bringing us under judgment. A person who is known for truthfulness is often respected, and people take them at their word. They don't need to swear. It is a person who people don't trust, having a history of manipulating facts, that people have to push hard in order to get truth out of them. Such a person has a tendency to resort to swearing to make people believe what they're saying. James is reiterating here what Jesus taught us in the Sermon on the Mount. This is what Jesus taught. Matthew 5:33 to 37. Again you have heard that it was said to those of old, You shall not swear falsely, but shall perform your oaths to the Lord. But I say to you, do not swear at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by earth, for it is his footstool, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Nor shall you swear by your head, because you cannot make one hair white or black. But let your yes be yes, and your no, no. For whatever is more than these is from the evil one. Let us be known for truthfulness. Let us be known for honesty and integrity, even among those that don't believe. A truthful and honest person carries a great authority and has good testimony, making their words important enough for others to hear. This is one way God uses such a person to bear his or her testimony before unbelievers in the hope that their hearts will be open to the Lord. I shall see you in the next session. God bless you.